So in today's video, I'm going to be covering curriculum and some specifics about principles and also a little bit of troubleshooting and tips for Form 1. So Form 1 is composed of like grades 1 through 3, so we're talking about kids ages about 6 to about 8. When our child loves to learn, has a love and delight for God and His world and His people, that is our primary goal and that is our primary focus in our children's education. We want to encourage that, and we want to, if anything, we want to try to incite that as much as possible. And the primary way that we do that is through story itself. We are literature-based as an education. It's really easy to just implement a lot of fun new ideas and concepts through great stories. And that does spread across quite a few subjects. We're able to do that. Now this is just a fun time of introduction. We're spreading the feast before them. The other core principle in these formative years for us to focus on is our relationship with our children. It's being established as teacher to student. We really want these days to lean towards a sweet and easy time to establish a pleasant and respectful atmosphere between us. So if there's tears happening every day, we need to take a moment to reevaluate and look and see, okay, maybe a step back is actually going to be a step forward right now, because we don't want it to be a large step backward in our relationship. The foundations for that is being laid down right now as well. This core principle of the relationship, I feel like, is so foundational for the later years. These formative years, laying down that relationship will bless the future years. The knowledge stored up under a tone of, with negative associations and disgruntled and bitterness, that's not going to be fruitful for their learning or for you as a teacher. Another priority in these early years for us is diligent habits. We've really seen that to be effective by teaching through short lessons. And by short, I mean 10 to 15 minutes. Sonia Schaefer from Simply Charlotte Mason calls it laying down the rails. I remember reading about it from very early on, and I implemented it right away with our children. If that was the only thing I got out of the study that I did early on, I'm so thankful that we implemented right away. It's easy in the early years to just want to teach them everything. They're hungry, dry little sponges, and that's what makes learning together so much fun. We've seen so much fruit by just giving them less time to absorb more than giving them more and less ability to absorb it, especially with skills that they're going to hone and are going to be shaped more later on. If I give them their work and then I walk away and don't hold them accountable, they just naturally, by human nature, slide into a lazy, sloppy habits. Some kids have a tendency to be perfectionists and sit and fuss over the work because they can't do it perfectly, and then we have children that are just completely unmotivated to do it on their own. Either way, me being present in these formative years, teaching them diligent habits of focus and attention pays off so much for them to be able to go on to become independent learners. If you can have an end in sight, it makes almost anything doable. Even if you need to set a 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute timer and have a child work diligently for that long, finish it well on a good note, and just close the book, you will see so much more progress forward. And this is not training them in laziness. This is not training them to take shortcuts. It is actually training them in focused, diligent work. I think we think we're teaching them diligent work by teaching them to drag out a lesson, and that's the opposite of diligence. Teaching them diligent work is to do something well and efficiently. And I'd rather they do 1 minute of good, diligent, efficient work than 20 minutes of sloppy procrastination. If you keep your lessons short and even shorten until the standard is high enough, bring that standard of time down until their technical skills meet up to that standard, and then you can incrementally build up more with that standard in place. If you have the standard way up here, they're just going to learn to just never meet it. Just slop around and never meet that standard. And that's actually teaching them laziness. That's not actually teaching them diligence. Teaching them the habit of focused work by short lessons and learning to absorb and then retell back what they've learned benefit them so much later on, and you as a teacher, because they will be able to do focused work on their own later. And that's what we have seen to be so true. And I'm so grateful that we laid those rails down early in the formative years. Another priority for us, for our children in this stage, is free time for play. Our children learn through play, and we've noticed if we give them time to engage with the world around them, they process all those things that they learned in their morning time of work, even though I thought they were not paying attention. I thought they were just being loud or banging around with their Legos and heard nothing, and then later I'll hear them, like retelling a story with their brother or sister or acting it out or something. Giving them that free time, I feel like, is so important, and that's how they're learning right now. It's their work. It's their work during this time is play. So now I want to get into some curriculum particulars. There's a handful of subjects that the children do independently, and that's what I'm going to cover now and what I am doing with them one-on-one. So these individualized subjects we actually do every day. So first up, phonics and spelling. I actually do not teach formal spelling until the second form. So what we've done for phonics is we do teach a child to read in 100 easy lessons. That's what I did for the first 5 children. And it was successful. Wasn't my favorite, but it was working enough that I wasn't gonna just try to fudge around and find something else. I did fudge around a little bit with one of my children that was just stalling out. We get to a point and there was like a wall. It was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So we did that a little bit. Last year we discovered Explode the Code workbooks. I'm not a workbook fan. I'm just not. I'm not a super fan of consumables, but I love this curriculum. It's like exactly what I would do on my own with the kids, kind of make up on my own as we went along when I saw the need, and this is just all laid out. It builds the skill incrementally, enough for the children, but in a fun and super engaging way for the kids, and all of my boys in this first form have loved it. That's what we do for phonics, is they do Explode the Code all the way through until they're ready to start reading. But I just want to talk about like spelling, vocabulary, and grammar right now. We don't do any of those formally in the first form. I have found that teaching phonics, reading aloud to them, and then copy work, which I'm going to cover next, has been more than enough for our children to learn good spelling and phonetic skills. And those are skills we're going to hone later on. The biggest reason why I have not incorporated those in the formative years is because they only have a limited amount of time and attention. It's not really that you as a teacher have limited time on your schedule, it's that your children have a limited amount of time at these ages that they can really truly engage with concepts, and especially a lot of new concepts. They're learning to read and they're learning to write, and they feel very similar to us, but for them, they're very complex ideas. With limited amount of attention, I want to focus on those core foundational things, and then I will wait and build those skills later when developmentally they're just ready. And I love to use the analogy, probably every single one of my friends has heard me say this, I would rather wait and drive a fence post in the spring than when the ground is soft and ready, then drive it all winter long to no avail. Developmentally, we have found it to be the most beneficial to wait for our kids. We have seen it not hold them back in any way, and it just gives us more time for things I feel like are much more important, like read alouds, where I can read to them at a higher grade level and their comprehension is at a higher grade level, and then those technical skills will develop and catch up. Next subject that is an independent subject that they do with me at the table, but they do it like on their own every day, is what we call copy work, but really short. It's like 5 to 10 minutes that a child is sitting there practicing their writing, their copy work. So the preschool years, we're just doing introduction to letters. So by the time they're in Form 1 and we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of learning how to read, their writing is just writing with a dry erase marker. That's how we begin, on a little whiteboard. Because I have found pencils to be a real pain for little kids. They don't like them. They're hard to hold with their little hands. And the sharp points don't make straight lines, which is what a child really wants. They really want to do good work. And so I found whiteboards to be great because they're erasable. They can wipe it clean if they don't like it and start over immediately. And it's just really easy for them to hold that marker. And ones with a gridded line is awesome. And they just practice writing their letters that way. And then usually by the time they're in about 2nd grade, between the ages of 6 or 7, and they're writing their letters comfortably, then we start like a more formal copy work time. They copy an excerpt from like a quality book versus hymns. So I usually just print off a chunk at the beginning of the term of like poems and the hymns that we're doing, and just print off some handwriting paper. I do fat 1-inch lines when they begin. By the end of this form, they're doing about a 1/2 inch. I have them go slow and we start with 1 word. I tell them I'd rather have them do 1 nice tidy word than, like a whole line filled with sloppy letters. So I write a few words and then they copy those words, and we just start with the word and then we go to a line, and then, you know, we just keep building. What I have them do is do as much as they can in like 1 minute at the beginning. Usually it encourages them when they see how much they can actually do in 1 minute. And then we build up to like 5 minutes. My older kids might sit there and write a copy work, but they could fill up a whole page with beautiful cursive handwriting in 5 minutes. Like I said, the focus is diligent, really nice handwriting during this time, and focusing on the words that they're writing. I'm gonna check their work and tell them and encourage them and put stars by the ones that are really good, and ask them if maybe they don't like this letter. Do you like the look of that H, or do you think you wanna fix it? Because by then, I have them writing with a pencil by the end of the form. 2nd to 3rd grade-ish, they're writing with a pencil usually by then, just fine. We also will go over a word that maybe they didn't know, talk about it. So that gets vocabulary in right there. They've learned their phonics, then they are ready to begin reading, and we just start with Bob books. Our kids have loved Bob books. I think it's just because they can finish a whole book and they think that's really fun. When I find something that my kids feel encouraged by, I tend to stick with it. And I think they really enjoy the Bob books because they can finish a book in a day, and that feels exciting, especially at the beginning. And then we move on to easy readers. There's been quite a few that the kids have loved over the years. And I just sit there and have them read out loud to me every day. It's a couple of pages. I try to gauge it. It's usually between 5 to 7 minutes that I have them read out loud to me, about that time-ish. And after they are pretty smooth and getting more and more confident, and I'm seeing them picking up books and reading on their own, then I will just have them read aloud to me like once a week. For our children to gain real fluency, it's taken different books for each one of the kids. It's like they find something that they really love, especially like a series, and they just like go with it. I think it's been a different book for almost every kid, but I think the one that stands out the most to me is Frog and Toad. They're cute, sweet, little, simple, quirky stories, and the boys love them. And it's really exciting to finish a chapter. You know, it's like 4 pages and they finish a chapter. And the illustrations are just sweet and cute. There's a lot of really great ones, and I will leave in the description box below some links. And I don't get too picky. If they're picking up books and reading them, I don't want it to be Captain Underpants or something about, you know, boogers and stuff, because there's a lot of junk out there. But I'm not gonna get super picky in regards to what is getting their attention and having them read. Sometimes it has been like a book about Legos, and they just like, you know, consume the whole thing. So I don't get super picky about that. So next up we have math, and I know this can be an area that is a real struggle for a lot of families. And we have actually found a curriculum that we love, but it is kind of an alternative way of teaching math. But it has been so helpful for our family. And I guess more than anything else, it's doable. And all of my children love it. All of our children so far have done really well with it. And if it works for us like that, I'm gonna stick with it. Some of my kids, math is not easy for them. And some of them, it's much easier for them to grasp the concepts. And that doesn't mean we don't have days we struggle, because we do. We have to wrestle through hard new concepts, but that's just called learning and growing. When we are struggling every single day and we have tears, you know, we got to reevaluate something there. So the curriculum that we love is Life of Fred, and I'm going to get into that a little bit, but I just want to talk about first, in Form 1, we are just primarily focusing at the very beginning on manipulatives, coin counting, learning our numbers by tracing them like we do our letters, and just keeping that fun, keeping them interested. We talk about it while we're baking. We talk about it while we're just living life together. We talk about math and calculating things. Money gets our kids pretty interested pretty quick, and they're learning to multiply before that ever really comes up in their math curriculum, and it's fun for them with money. See, 1st and 2nd grade, basically, I read their lesson to them until they are independent enough readers to read it on their own, and I let them even orally answer with me and then write it down on a piece of paper. But I do not want them to sit there grueling over using their pencil for problems when what we are teaching primarily with math is concepts. If they can do the math with me verbally, their technical skills will catch up. This is just Form 1, and I want them to engage with these fun new math concepts and ideas and not be so frustrated over the dumb pencil, because it happens a lot with boys. 5th grade. It's 5th grade. It's Form 2, where that all syncs up and connects. It has for all of my children, even the ones that it's hard, it's difficult, it varies. It does not happen in Form 1 for my children. Now, that doesn't mean that's true for yours. I just think early on that they absorb more in less time. Once again, core principle here, it even applies to math. So I'm going to talk about Life of Fred. It is a mastery program, which means each book is like a concept that they're honing in. And then the next book is going to build on the previous concept that was mastered while they learn a new one. And that makes it really easy for the kids that are doing really well with math. They can move ahead to the next book, finish one, they could fly through it, finish it, move ahead. And the ones that is taking them a little bit longer to get through a book, it's fine. I have even found it possible to skip over a book because through the course of a summer, maybe through money and counting things that just weren't connecting in the spring of the previous year, because you got that concept down and we're gonna move on. So these books are hardback books, and I love that about them because they've lasted through children, and you don't write in them. They're not a consumable. They write on pieces of paper, so we keep a notebook. I have heard good things about other math curriculum, and this is just working so well for us that we're sticking to it. I did have a math gal one time say, she said, just teach them basic concepts and have them do like little drill sheets until 5th grade, and then they can learn the more abstract concepts. She's like, they're not ready before that. And she was like a math professor. But we do stick to the Life of Fred curriculum, but it's really simple, and it is a mastery. Like, we're gonna master addition, we're gonna master subtraction, and there's a little geometry and other fun little quirky things thrown in there that they are learning alongside of that. For me, the key factors for a math curriculum would be shorter but challenging enough lessons for the children that they can finish. Mastery of complex ideas without too many new concepts being introduced every single day and too much repetition. And then workable life examples to these abstract concepts that they're learning. And Life of Fred nails all of those, so we just love it. We think it's great. Also, some free resources, which I'll link below, are dadsworksheets.com. There's tons of printable math aids, and when they're about 8 or so, we'll give them a worksheet that just to supplement like some rote memorization. Also, mathdrillsheets.com has great printables as well, free. So that sums up what the kids will be doing individually with me, more one-on-one. And then moving on now into what we do with the forms with the combined subjects. This is where it really gets fun. This is my favorite time of the school day, is when we get to read these wonderful books together. I have to remind myself of as well, and I want to encourage you with here too, is I am focusing in on this form because I need to lay those rails down so that I can shoot them off into their independent work, and then the next kid coming up into this form, I'm ready for them too. The core subjects that we do together are literature, natural history, which is science for them in these years, history, geography, and fables. For our combined subjects, I usually have 2 readings a day. And remember, we're keeping short lessons here, so I read for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then the children will narrate to me, and they just take turns, and that's it. So I just rotate through 1 to 2 readings a week, and we are able to get through more than enough work by the end of the week together. So for literature, we go through the Gentle Feast book list first. I love the book suggestions that she has in there. I think they're pretty good fits. I know the ones that are a little bit longer, I will read over the course of the whole term, and the ones that are shorter, we'll consume quickly. So I just schedule them accordingly. She has them listed by term, and I just put in how many books that I think we'll be able to get through in a term. We could do 1 picture book a week, and then we do 1 to 2 chapter books, depending on how long they are over the course of the term. Next up is Fables. It's one of our favorite subjects, and sometimes we read those during morning time, which I talked about in my previous video. Things like Greek myths, Roman myths, some American tall tales are really fun. And then we read Aesop's Fables. I have a couple of illustrated versions, and then I have the actual original Aesop Fables. So they're fun to talk about, and they're about animals, so it always engages my boys when it's about, the eagle being shot by the arrow, or the fox trying to eat the rabbit, and there's just so many fun little nuances and lessons to be learned. But I will say, I do not tell my children the moral and the lesson of the story. They narrate back to me and tell me what they think, and then I ask them with some prompts and some questions maybe. But I want them to engage with it and try to figure out the moral. They have a moral compass built inside of them, just like we do. We do not have to tell them and spoon feed them everything. And that's the beauty of education, is watching all of that unfold before your eyes. Okay, moving on to natural history. So during the first form, if we're not a part of a co-op, my kids do natural history, not science. If we're part of a co-op and there's a science class for their age, then we'll opt in for that. But that means I still try to do their natural science reading with them outside of this time, because we love it so much. Natural history is just an engaging story about the creation and the creatures in God's world, and they're just so well written. So we read the Burgess books. We've also been reading the Among the Forest people or Among the Pond people. Just wonderful stories. I'm going to link all these below for you. That's all the science that they do. They read it, they retell it, and then we do a little bit of notebooking work at the end of the readings. So once a week, they like draw the bird that we just read about. They color it in, and we put them on 3x5 cards. But it's really fun to keep them on a key ring, and the kids can just see what they've learned about throughout the year. The little creatures or the little birds. And it is a way to solidify that information and that knowledge and store it up in their mind and then have them engage with it. The other thing that we learn as a group together is geography. What we do now is we just do like map drills. I print off from Satera and we learn the states. A few states they color in and write the name on a week. And then we're learning American history. There's so many books that are contextual to places. And some of our history books become the geography book, and we just talk about the place, look it up on the map. We just incorporate it more into our history curriculum. And so the actual geography time sometimes is an assigned book in Form 1, but more often it just is correlating to learning the states and what we're reading in history. So how we study history in a large family, kind of unique because I combine the kids. I have found it to be such a gift. Susan Wise Bauer taught this. Pretty sure she rotates through. I think she did a 3-year cycle 4 times, but we do a 4 time period cycle through 3 times. So wherever a child is coming in and they're in Form 1, they're in the time period that we're all in. Everybody's in the same time period. So Gentle Feast actually has them laid out this way, and I really, really love it. We've been doing it this way for years, and I'm not going back. There was a time I actually was trying to do Ambleside year with each child, and my brain was like, ugh. The reason I love having everybody in the same history year is connections are firing away for everybody. The teenagers are discussing at the dinner table what they're learning in history, and little kids are like, hey, I read about Buffalo Bill or Abraham Lincoln or whatever it is. It's just wonderful. So in Form 1, they're not doing ancient. Form 2 and Form 3, they're going to. So they're only going to cycle through the ancient history to have 2 cycles. But it is wonderful to get to do that twice around, because the final form, they're really getting in depth with it, but they've had an introduction previously. So this has worked really well, because as you can see, I can stick any child in here and I'm going to know their bases are going to get covered likely 3 times over. We're going to be introducing it, we're going to dig in deeper, and then we're going to actually learn and apply it in the upper years. Well, that is all I have for you. I know that's a lot for Form 1, but this is a very formative chunk of time in your children's education. I probably will have much less to say for Form 2 and the consecutive forms, because they're doing so much work on their own. It's just not as complicated, I found. Laying the rails down, laying the foundations down now is so important. So thank you so much for joining me for this video today. God bless your hearts and all the energy and labor that you are putting into your children and pouring into your children. He will bless it and He will use it for His glory and for His kingdom's work. And I will catch you in the next video. Bye guys.